We are supposedly a westernized industrial nation, and yet all the Western industrial nations, in Europe, for instance, all have, for instance, healthcare systems for their people, which they never abandon, no matter what their economies happen. We finally took one step forward in that, in the so-called Obamacare law.
Yeah.
We now have at least 8 million to 10 million people who are insured, who have
Yes.
not been.
Correct.
And now suddenly, and I applauded that because I figured it's finally a step forward in my own lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
Now it seems it's one of the major things that the Republicans want to really try to destroy. And what worries me at this point is that they may very well be able to do it unless the American people, especially those millions who now have insurance, will not allow it.
Right. Well, I think I said when I talked about that situation that the insurance companies and the hospitals have all altered their procedures to a great extent because of Obamacare, assuming that this was going to be there for quite a while. I don't think you can reverse a lot of those things. I'm sure you're all familiar with what North Shore Hospital is now Long Island Jewish, and now they're connected to Lenox Hill in the city. And I mean, this is happening to hospitals all over. They're all putting their records on electronic systems. They're all getting more modernized, and they're all trying to go away the fee-for-service approach, which ameliorates the charges that we all get. So they're all in a trend line to accommodate that. The insurance companies, it's a boom because they're all getting a lot of business that they didn't have before, okay? Maybe some of us are paying more money for that, but that's life. That's why we pay taxes in the first place. I mean, do you want to carry a gun, or do you want to hire a soldier to carry a gun? Do you want to put out the fire? Do you want to hire a fireman to do it? Do you want to have your own police force, or do you want to pay for a policeman to be trained and to do that work? This is what taxes are for. This is what education is for. That's why he is proposing this community college free for all those people that really can't afford it, and gives them a leg up on. It's like, let me finish my point.
Yeah.
When I got out of the service, I took advantage of the GI Bill. I may not have been able to afford to go to graduate school, but I did go. The government paid. The same goes for all those veterans from World War II. We have the whole middle class of this country was built to a great extent on the millions of men and some women that went under the GI Bill and became doctors, lawyers, professional people, because the government said, well, we owe you something for serving the country. And the country was helped by all the money that was put in to the GI Bill. So therefore, I agree with that approach. I agree with Obamacare. I agree that there's fraud. But there always was. On the Social Security system, there's fraud. On Medicare, there's horrific fraud. The point is, I'm against fraud. I think we should make billions of dollars by clamping down on fraud. The point is that there's always something wrong with whatever you do, and the objective is to put it into place and then tweak it, change it, alter it, fix it, not wipe it out.
Yeah.
Because there are many provisions there that are humane, period.
May I just add to this little discussion here on health? The expansion, the insurance, the hospitals, it helps employment. It helps jobs. It's creating jobs. I know within my own family, the second and third generations now who are in college, suddenly they're looking at the medical field as nurses, male nurses,
Right.
and so on. So this is another component.
Absolutely. Yes. Anybody else?
So why are they closing hospitals? That's what he says is true. Why are they closing hospitals all over the country?
Yes.
Um, may I add three pieces? Number one, most of the countries throughout the world have a single payer. The way the Obamacare went through was because the private companies, the insurance companies, are making an enormous amount of money.
Correct.
And the hope was that we would be able to go to single payer, and that would be very helpful.
At some point, that may happen, but you've got, in a
Right.
democracy, which is a messy place to live, which we
Right.
live in, right? You have factions, and you have people who are greedy, and well, in non-democratic societies, you certainly have it.
Right.
But at least in democratic societies, we don't kill each other over it.
Right.
We debate it and argue over it, but eventually, as I wrote in my piece, the road gets straightened, usually, eventually, over time.
But the Canadian system is a single payer, and we are such a strong capitalistic system, and the almighty dollar is so powerful in this country that we are lacking that very much so. And in terms of our children going to school and colleges, our youngsters who get the opportunity to go to college, and indeed that makes the difference in a society. The youngsters who do the best in college now are not going into medicine, which they used to go into, but medicine no longer is making the kinds of money that it used to make. So the best minds in college now are going into business and hedge funds. So that's something to think about. And the third thing I wanted to talk about was the Iranian situation. And we know that Iran has just been implicated by Israel in terms of the terrible bombing that occurred in Argentina many years ago, and that the man in Argentina who was supposed to be able to find out all of the issues just supposedly committed suicide. And he said that the Iranian government and the Argentinian government had made a deal where they were not going to talk anymore about how the Iranian government was involved in the killing in Argentina, because the Iranians had a deal with Argentina to give them oil for much less than it should have been.
So what is new in the world? I mean, come on. We also had somebody assassinated in Iran, Mossadegh, back when the British Iranian oil company was involved, and we were involved off from the Bay of Pigs in Cuba. So we are not, let's say, innocent of some of these terrible things that have happened in the world. Our best friends now are Germany and Japan. I mean, could you have said that 50 years ago? My point is, it's a messy world, and there's good and bad, and we hope that the majority of people are good and want good, and then end some of these things. Evil is evil, and evil happened, but evil is happening now, right? Okay? It's like Abbas has been invited to be in the court in Belgium, okay, the international court, and they want to bring Israel to trial because of what they said was overreacting to the missiles into Gaza. Okay? The point is, they who are applauding things that are atrocious are now going to try to implicate Israel in something where they were protecting their own population. What's new? This give and take is there. It's Russia trying to say we were in charge of, the CIA was in charge of the killings in Paris. What's new? Each party, each government acts in what it thinks is it's in its own best interest, lie or not lie. Okay? We are not innocent. We are, as I said, we are less guilty than almost every country that exists, because eventually we always want to do the right thing. The population eventually says, this is really where we're going. We did have slavery here, didn't we? We did have 600,000 people die in the Civil War, didn't we? The point is, but the majority of the population wants to go beyond that. in South Africa, right, they had horrible things happen. And then the new president came in that had been in prison for how many years, came in and said, we're going to forgive everything that happened because I can't change it, and it's going to help destroy and never help this country grow. That's human beings. We all have something good in us, but a lot of us have a little bad in us. Some have a lot of bad. That's why we have jails. Yes, ma'am.
I'm very concerned about the news that I heard this evening about the Republicans inviting Israel.
Yes, I mentioned that.
No, you didn't.
Netanyahu.
You went right over it. You didn't go into detail about it. I just want to know what kind of repercussions there will be, and it certainly puts this country in a very bad light. And the Republicans probably think that they could embarrass Obama about it, but and I think that Israel really should refuse to come. That's my opinion.
Why would Netanyahu refuse to come when he and the Republicans have the same mindset? So why should he refuse? Because he wants to. Each country does what it feels is most important to itself. Israel feels that Iran, with an atomic bomb, missiles and bombs, could wipe them out overnight, in hours, okay? I know very well what Israel has. My point to you is that I didn't gloss over it. I mentioned it, that Boehner invited him without approaching the Obama or anybody in the administration, that this was his intention. He just did it in order to embarrass the president or put pressure on the president to, let's say, not, because the president intends to go around the country pleading his case for all the items that he issued in the State of the Union address. That's one of them, okay? Give us time to negotiate something, because Iran has something to work with us on, because they're threatened by ISIL also, okay? And they're threatened by the oil decline. They have a lot of problems, and they're threatened by a population that's young, educated, middle class, and interested in joining the world. So their government is interested, in his view, in negotiating something so that they can join and get the shackles of the various restrictions we have on their economy, okay? So he feels that they have things to gain by working with us. The Republicans feel that we put more pressure on the Iranians by passing more legislation against them. There's a difference of opinion, okay? So I feel more like in Obama's camp, but I see the logic of the Republican side as well, okay? They putting more the legislation they may pass may be say, well, if you don't do this, this is what we're going to now add on to your restrictions. So I don't know what their intention is eventually, but having Netanyahu come here obviously bolsters their side of that story. Yes? Come on, what about this side over here? This is the quiet side, this is the... Yes? All the topics we discussed. Does anybody have anything to say? Positive, negative? Yes, sir.
And bring the mic there.
Have the television audience call in, please.
You know, the smart money in the last 10 years or so doesn't look to the federal government. That's not where the money goes. The money goes to the state governments. And the smart money, the hedge funds, have paid off state governments to pass laws that really affect all of us. It's not, they don't target the federal government. They know that's not where things happen. Things happen in the states. And one of the things that, particularly here in New York, which is happening nationally, which is really an attack on our democracy, is the raping, and I call it the raping of our public school system by the hedge funders who have gotten themselves pay off the state legislatures through ALEC, the legislative exchange, and they've done a job on schools all over the country. And I feel for our grandchildren, because what the schools that they're going to now are not schools. The schools they're going to now are test centers, test preparation. All that counts for these hedge funders, and the only way the attack on teachers is on test results. Not what they teach, but test results. The latest total disappointment is Governor Cuomo, whose attack on teachers came after he got paid off very handsomely by hedge funders who have opened up charter schools and have gone away with our tax money into their own pockets, unaccountable, and have taken money from our public schools that we're constitutionally bound to educate our children. So it's our children that are suffering. You may not know this because we are here living in a nest and we don't hear about it. Ask your grandchildren if they like to go to school. My grandchild doesn't want to go to school. All they do is testing, 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 and testing. It's unbelievable. So I think possibly next time...
I'll interrupt you for a moment. Your time's running out and you're making a speech. I'm not familiar with the hedge fund problem. I am aware of the charter school approach. It's been very successful in many cities, in many locations. I'm not, let's say, conversant enough to get into the depth of it and make accusations about hedge funds, not hedge funds, and so forth.
But you're making an accusation that's successful. You have nothing to base it on.
I'm not.
They are not successful.
From what I've read, there have been very successful charter school programs. I dislike the idea that charter schools, like for instance, they publicize the ones in the Bronx, where it's a lottery system and many of these kids are shut out that have the ability and can go and do the work, but can't because they didn't win the lottery. Schooling shouldn't be a lottery. I agree that all the kids should have access to good schools. I heard Governor Cuomo in the State of the Union address yesterday, and he was saying that, and I agree with that. I went to public school. I went to the best public school in Boston, in my view, Boston Latin School, and is the oldest school in the country. And Franklin went there, and John Hancock went there, and Sam Adams went there, and I went there. And I didn't have any money to go there. It was not a private school, it was a public school. You have in New York, you have specialized schools in Queens, in the Bronx, in Manhattan also, okay? But the fact is, at the elementary level, where a lot of the grounding is, there are very insufficient schools in this city, but certainly around the country. But the fact is, charter schools have served a purpose. I'm not, as I said, aware or involved or know enough about the bad things about them. I have heard the good things, and I hear, and I originally was against them in a sense because I said, well, all that money you should give to the public schools. But there are some horrible public schools, okay? And the fact is, the charter schools have served a very good purpose. I think they point to Chicago as being the most successful area that they've actually put them in. I'm not aware of hedge funds, and that's something for further discussion that we might want to make. Yes, ma'am.
You didn't talk about fracking.
I didn't talk about what?
Fracking.
Fracking.
The pipeline.
The pipeline.
Got to go to down, and that means that all the oil being.
Well, I didn't talk about a lot of things.
That's one of the
But they're not going to let me talk anymore. Am I right, John?
Yes, again, Brady wants to wrap it up.
Their tape is run out. The point is, fracking is good and bad. The bad we know about is that it can pollute the water stream, it can cause sinkholes, it can cause a lot of bad damage, okay? But then there's the positive side too. Every side is a positive. You and I, let's put it this way, unless you're a professional in a certain area, you and I know very little. It's like you and I trying to condemn the CIA or this or that or the other. We don't know how many lives they've saved here by uncovering things or knocking off somebody that was about to kill you and your children and your family. You don't know that. So we say, oh, they did this bad and they did that bad. But they're chartered to save our lives, okay? It's like the sniping to me is a negative. But now they're trying to make it a positive with the movie. And maybe with the movie, what they do with the sniper, American Sniper, is make a positive spin on it. That's fine, okay? But the fact is that if what they did is not the title, it's what they really did. What was he doing? What were they doing? What are they doing? You and I know very little. It's true. If they get to Mars, they will not be able to come back, but people are signing up to go there. Can you believe? We don't have the technology to bring them back. The point is, you and I don't know so much. It used to be when I was young and when most of you were young, seeing is believing. Seeing is not believing. Not seeing is believing. Not seeing. Do you see how this works? I can take a picture with this tiny, this is an old-fashioned, right? It's not a smartphone, right? But I can take pictures off of this and I can send them with this little thing. You used to have a big camera, a Brownie first, right? How do they put pictures in these little things? And I can talk to somebody. That's not possible, is it? Seeing, not seeing is believing, as well as seeing is believing.